The time is December 1995, 25 years ago. At this time, people are really enjoying their brand new PlayStation consoles, playing games like NBA Jam Tournament Edition, Ridge Racer, and others. They're also still enjoying 16-bit consoles, which are enjoying their dying embers of popularity. Super Nintendo and the Genesis are still doing pretty well. The Saturn is continuing to struggle, and we are waiting with bated breath for any information that we could get on Nintendo's new 64-bit platform, codenamed Ultra 64, now called the Nintendo 64. So take a trip back with me as we take a look at issue number 78 of Electronic Gaming Monthly from January 1996, which hit newsstands in December 1995. As you can see, we have a picture of the Nintendo 64 here with Mario in front of it. Ultra 64 is still the code name, so we really weren't sure what to call it. Some magazines would call it Ultra 64, others would be using the new name, and eventually everyone would come around to the Nintendo 64 title. We also are still talking about 32-bit consoles. We have the Neo Geo, the PlayStation, and the Saturn represented, as well as a picture of an Ultra 64 game, Star Wars, which would later be known as Shadows of the Empire. As you can see, this is a sealed issue of the magazine, so we're going to go ahead and take the seals off of this and take a look at the magazine piece by piece. So buckle yourselves in as we look at this magazine from the past. Let's go ahead and open this up. I wasn't sure which issue to open in this episode, but this one made sense as it was 25 years ago this month. For those that weren't around back then, magazines always used to have a month lead time. So if the magazine's date was January of 1990 or January 1996, it actually hit newsstands in December of 1995. So this magazine really is 25 years old. It is fairly thick. It is a January issue, so it's a little past the holidays, so it's not as big as EGM's like November and December issues, which are massive. And we opened up a November 1992 issue with Super Star Wars on the cover recently that was just ginormous. Still a decent size though, and the magazine cost $5. So for $5 to get all of this stuff was, I thought, a pretty good deal. Now me, I probably should have subscribed to video game magazines. I probably would have saved money, but it was a monthly thing to do, to take myself down to the mall, to the bookstore, to buy issues of video game magazines when they came in, and I always bought a ton. EGM, GamePro, Game Players, Game Fan, eventually Official PlayStation Magazine, Next Generation. I mean, the list goes on. I spent a ton of money on video game magazines, and I'm sad that I lost them all over the years due to moving and other things. So I've started the collection up again, and that's where Print from the Past has really come in. So without further ado, let us look and see what is on the inside. And the first thing that we see when we open it up, and this is like brand new, so the pages are kind of sticky here. So I got to use my fingers. So the first thing we see is we see an ad for Konami Sports. Hey rookie, welcome to the big leagues. And you have to forgive me, I'm reading this backwards because I don't have the image reversal on my computer here. But we have all these long box games. We have Bottom of the Ninth, we have In the Zone, we have Goalstorm, NFL Full Contact, which I'm still trying to get for my collection. Konami's sports games tried to be simulations, but at the same time had an arcade feel to them. So it really walked the line between simulation and arcade, and I enjoyed them as a result of that. I thought that they were pretty enjoyable. So that is an ad from Konami, and a shout out to my Retro Referee character. You can check him out in my most recent episode of Unsealed when we took the wrappings off of Contender. Here's an ad for Secret of Evermore, a Super Nintendo game that I still have not played to this day. I don't have an excuse. I don't have a reason why I haven't played it. I just haven't. It's a creepy looking ad, I have to say. There's a wolf or a dog type character there. Secret of Evermore, I guess it has similarities to Secret of Mana, but if I'm honest, I don't really know a lot about it. We also have an ad here for Spawn, the video game, it looks like. Spawn has been in video games for 25 years now. We also have a letter to the editor saying being last is not always best. So they're probably talking about the delayed release of the Nintendo 64 versus the Saturn and the PlayStation. Have an ad here for Blazing Dragons. Cool looking fire breathing guy there. Crystal Dynamics is the titled company there. And I do believe, yes, it's Saturn and PlayStation here. down at the bottom. I thought I saw something there showing that it was a 3DO version, but again, reading backwards. All right, what do we got here? So, the Ultra 64 is what we see here on the front cover. Now, granted, Nintendo 64 is what we see on the magazine cover, but we still show Ultra 64 here. I love these pictures. If I'm being completely honest, I love the Ultra 64 name better than Nintendo 64. It just sounded cooler and more futuristic. But that is really the focus of this particular issue, and we will get to those pictures shortly. So we have the Ultra 64 here. We have some information about the Game Shark and a piece about Revolution X. Shout out to my buddy Josh, wearing my Insert Coin shirt. If you haven't seen the Insert Coin Midway documentary, make sure you check that out. Check it out online. I believe Insert Coin has their own website. You can also check them out on social media as well. What else do we have here? Well, yeah, speaking of 3DO, we have a 3DO ad. You know, the 3DO, I always talk about the 3DO on social media, and I say that it is a system that was ahead of its time. It was unfortunately weighed down by its huge price tag. Like $700 is way too expensive for a video game console. But it was showing us the way for multimedia video game consoles and with more advanced 32-bit graphics. While the games weren't necessarily there all the time, I do believe that the 3DO had the technology and had the horsepower under the hood to be a pretty successful console. It just didn't catch on like the PlayStation and the Saturn did, and they did CD-based games right, but the 3DO, I think, gets the short end of the stick, and if you were to play a 3DO today, I think you'd be impressed by some of the games that are available for it, such as Road Rash, Madden Football, and others. Some ads here for NHL Face-Off and NFL Game Day from Sony. Remember that this is late 1995, early 96, so EA has not released their sports games for the PlayStation yet, so Sony beat EA to the punch. With NFL Game Day and with NHL Face-Off, there was no competition from EA at all. NHL 97 would be a year later, and Madden 97 would be a year later as well. So Sony had the playing field to themselves, and they did really, really well with both franchises. Unfortunately, NHL Face-Off kind of faded by the boards in comparison to NHL, whereas NFL Game Day hung with Madden until the very end on the PlayStation. Looking at 1996 by the numbers, so we have some graphs here, just some information about the year to come, and we have some market share information. Software sales for 16-bit were going down, while 32 and 64-bit were going up. Hardware sales, the same kind of thing, and that's what you would expect. It was a generational shift as we were moving away from 16-bit, which had been ruling the roost for the last 5 years, and moving to 32, 64-bit, which were really just starting to get their legs under them. There's an interesting quote here from Sega's Mike Ribeiro. It says, quote, "I won't lie to you, we screwed up with 32X. We overpromised and underdelivered." And boy, that is true. I really wanted to like the 32X, and I had bought one. I got it home, I was ready to use it. I ran into one of the same problems that the angry video game nerd had run into, where I was getting sound in some graphics, but not the polygon graphics because I didn't have the cables plugged in right. So I had some issues with my 32X, and I only wound up having 2 games for it. I had Virtua Racing and I had Star Wars, and that was as far as that went. I wound up trading that in towards something else within like a month because it just wasn't for me. It was one of the biggest wastes of money I think that I had ever had. If I look back on it now with its full complement of software, unfortunately, I still don't think it's enough. However, it might not be as bad as I thought it was at the time, had I just been a little bit patient. But patience is not my middle name. It wouldn't surprise me if Sega pulled the plug on its hardware system, said analyst Mike Wallace. And yeah, that wound up being true. The Saturn would eventually die off, and it was a two-system race between the PlayStation and the N64, and that would go from like 1997 through 2000. So these articles here where EGM tries to break down the sales aspect is when I really started to get into sales analysis and wanting to do things like that for a living. I actually did write about sales analysis and sales numbers for a little while for various websites before moving on to education. So we have more information here about the Ultra 64, the Ultra 64 Crunch, it says here. The Ultra 64's launch is nearing and competitors are saying how they exploit the weak points to fight the Ultra 64. High cartridge prices, those were definitely a problem with the N64. They were between $10 to $20 more expensive than CDs, and again, it's because of the medium that they were on. And the other being the M2 factor, which was never a thing because the M2 never made it to market. The M2 is kind of sort of the sequel to 3DO technology, and it was stillborn. It just never wound up happening, which is very sad. I'll have to read that article more a little bit later on. There's also an ad here for the, the Atari Jaguar. Unbelievable. Thumb breaks 4 world records. That's something the Jaguar never did, is break a world record. Sega's bold leap to PC. And Captain Quasar, so another 3DO ad. And a look at Sega moving from console to PC. I do remember playing a couple Sega games on my Windows computer in like 2000, and it never felt right. I always liked playing those on console. Let's see what else is interesting here. Star Trek Deep Space Nine Harbinger for PC and Mac. I never played that. I was never a Deep Space Nine guy. Next Generation, yeah. Original series, oh yeah. Deep Space Nine and Voyager, not my thing. Oh, the NFL, the Super Data Blaster. Now, I don't remember these here. You see the NFL one here. Pocket Fan, it says, sports and more are just fingertips away. Remember, we really didn't have mobile technology yet, and the closest we were getting to mobile gaming systems were the Game Boy, the Game Gear, the Nomad, the Lynx. So having something like that where you had a bunch of information at your fingertips was definitely a cool idea. You know, it's from Tiger Electronics. Go figure. Tiger Super Data Blaster caters to sports fans who need quick access to sports statistics. So before we had cell phones where you could just look up and see who leads the league in sacks or anything like that, we had the Pocket Fan. That is a pretty neat idea. I wonder if there are any of those in the market. I should probably look. There's an ad here for Doom for the PlayStation. Really liking going back and playing Doom, by the way, on the Switch and on the Xbox One. I was not a PC guy back in the day, and I did play Doom a little bit on the PlayStation and a little bit more on the Nintendo 64. But Doom 64 was a different beast altogether. But playing Doom now, as it originally was, on a really souped-up PC is pretty darn awesome, if I say so myself. Ads here from Atlas for Space Griffin VF9 and High Velocity for the PlayStation and Saturn, respectively. Either way, you're going to scream, apparently. When you find out that you wasted money in those games, you are going to scream, I guess. More 3DO games here. More wholesome fun, only on 3DO. Snowjob Starfighter, Phoenix 3 Battlesport, Golden Gate Treasure by the Bay, and Captain Quasar. We're starting to see here in this ad that multimedia is definitely a thing with the 3DO and playing full motion video, as well as having really good graphics for games was a big deal for the 3DO, and eventually would be too for the PlayStation and the Saturn, and left the Sega CD behind. An ad for Brain Dead 13, which is another Dragon's Lair type game. Some coupons here for the Aura Interactor, the X-Band, and Urban Strike. Boy, I wanted an X-Band when I was a kid. Oh, I wanted an X-Band. And I wasn't a kid at the time. I was in my 20s. But I really wanted an X-Band because I thought that online was going to be the way to go. Of course, had I seen what online would do to gaming in 2020, well, that would be a different story. But that's a video for another time. There is a cheat sheet here for Tekken 2, which you could tear out, and it shows button combos for the different fighters in the game. That is pretty cool. I'm not a Tekken guy. I wish I was. I play Tekken. I enjoy playing it, but I am no good. No good at all. We do have all the characters represented, actually, which is really neat. I might rip this out and hold on to that. That's really, really cool. Then we get to our... Wait, not yet. The Killer Instinct ad for Game Boy. Dead meat. Enjoy it wherever you go. On the Super Game Boy and on Game Boy systems. I have not played Killer Instinct on Game Boy. I really should look into getting that to see how good or bad it is. The Play It Loud campaign, when we're talking about ads, was just strange. I really don't... I mean, Attitude was really what it was. Joe Redifer from GameSack just abbreviates it to Tude, and that's really what it is. The Play It Loud campaign, the Sega does what Nintendo campaign, the in-your-face advertising, that's all from the Attitude era. So we get to the video game review section. We have PlayStation, Super NES, a bunch of Super NES, and Toy Story. PlayStation's XCOM getting Game of the Month for this particular issue with a couple of 9.5s, an 8.5, and an 8.0. Revolution X getting 2 6.5s and 2 3s. Revolution X on the PlayStation, by the way, is pretty good. I don't care what you say. I know some people say it's just a very basic shooter and it doesn't work well without the light gun, but I really enjoy it. Again, I'm a Midway guy, so I may be a little bit biased, maybe a little more than a little biased, but I do enjoy the game that way. Final Fight 3 getting 6.5 and then 3 5s. I am not a fan of Final Fight 3. And if I'm honest, Final Fight 2 is just kind of okay. I think that the sequels were more of the same, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. 3 definitely outstays its welcome. There's only so long you can play a beat 'em up before it just feels like more of the same, and I think Final Fight 3 crosses that line. There's also a review for Mortal Kombat 3 for the Super Nintendo, which gets the esteemed Editor's Choice Gold Award, with 3 8.5s and an 8.0. Mortal Kombat 3 versus Mortal Kombat 2, adding the run button really confused me. As it was, adding the block button made me struggle, but the run button just made me struggle even more. I tried to play Mortal Kombat 3 in the arcade. I really did. I wanted to like it, and I just didn't. And even when I got it for the PlayStation, because that's just what you did, it was a PlayStation exclusive for a little while, and even then, I struggled with it on that console. There's a review of Toy Story for the Genesis with 3 6.5s and an 8.0 because reasons. We have a review for Gargoyles on the Genesis, which is very middling, averaging about 5.5. Virtual Cop for the Saturn. Virtual Cop's a fun series. That getting 3 7s and an 8. And Theme Park for the Saturn getting a Gold Award, averaging 8.0. Have it. A review of Solar Eclipse on the Saturn, getting 2 8s and 2 7.5s. Solar Eclipse would come to the PlayStation as well, and originally started out on a 3DO. Loaded for the PlayStation, getting an 8.5, a 7, a 9, and an 8, so kind of all over the map there. The port of Gex from the 3DO for the PlayStation, getting a couple of 8s, an 8.5, and a 7. I like the original Gex, but if I'm being honest, I like the 2 sequels just a little bit more. Having that 3D Super Mario 64 type world to explore. But at the same time, with those being a little more enclosed and not as open or wide open, it feels more focused to me, and I enjoy those games just a little bit more. Also reviews here for Viewpoint on the PlayStation, Captain Quasar on the 3DO, and Scramble Cobra on the 3DO. Scramble Cobra I don't remember. And there's an ad for Scramble Cobra. Speaking of, I'm going to force feed these clowns a few tasty missiles, apparently. Because, again, attitude. More reviews. Shockwave 2 for the 3DO. The Shockwave games I really liked. Now, the base gameplay is a little bit on the boring side. It is just pretty much a rail shooter. But it's the full motion video sequences that really add the personality to the games. And again, got to consider the time frame. This is when people were in love with full motion video. Electronic Arts did a really great job with producing those. They're funny, and at the same time, there's a little bit of drama going on there, and I really enjoyed those games. Shockwave Assault, I believe, is the PlayStation port that combines the original Shockwave and Shockwave 2, and that's worth taking a look at if you like older PlayStation games like I do. There is a review of iWar for the Jaguar, which I have never heard of, and Mario Clash for the Virtual Boy. Oh, yes, a Virtual Boy review is here. In its red and black glory, much like the review section here. There's also an ad here for Off-World Interceptor Extreme, a game that I opened up a long box copy of for Unsealed some time ago. More reviews, because again, we're going through the holiday season. Killer Instinct for the Game Boy, speaking of, because you saw that ad earlier, the EGM folks did not like it. 2 2s and 2 3s. Is it that bad? Nintendo really butchered this game when they converted it over to the Game Boy. I wasn't expecting much, but this shouldn't have even been attempted. The graphics are pixelized beyond reasonable limits. They even removed Riptor, my favorite character. The audio is a series of bland bleeps. Worse yet is the control. You can't differentiate between weak and strong hits, making many special moves impossible to do. Not even good while on the Super Game Boy. I get it, and maybe Nintendo and Rare shouldn't have even bothered, but still, I give them credit for trying. Killer Instinct is not my thing. I really never understood the combo system, but I think it's pretty cool that it made its way to the Game Boy. Granted, if you were paying full price for it back then, it would be an issue, but now when you can get it for a bit cheaper, especially if you're getting it loose, I don't see why not. Sonic Labyrinth for the Game Gear, so we've got all the systems included here. Tails Adventure for the Game Gear. Got an ad for Quarterback Attack, a game I have not played. Man, 20 minutes gone by already, and I'm not even halfway through. Gaming Gossip with the Quarterman. So, as I've talked about in Print from the Past before, the Gaming Gossip section is the rumors section, and these are always a lot of fun to look back at to see how close or how far away these rumors were. Let's see what we've got. Look for new licensees to start lining up for a ride on the Ultra 64 bandwagon, including EA, which is true. EA did make games for the Nintendo 64. Who launches onto the Nintendo platform with FIFA Soccer. Kemco with a new racer, that also happened. And Ultra Studios with what could be the first Ultra Baseball title, and that would wind up being Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball. Let's see, talking about Atari, which was struggling. Still talking about Masashida's M2, which never wound up being a thing. Count on Kareem and Magic to spice up Crystal Dynamics' upcoming Slam & Jam for the PlayStation and Genesis. The Genesis version did not happen. The Saturn version did. I think that's what Quarterman meant. Let's see what else. More on the M2, which never wound up being a thing. Sony plans to introduce the Sony PlayStation 2 in 1997. No, that didn't happen. And the PlayStation 3 in the next century. Well, that did happen. Warhawk for the PlayStation is a real favorite of the queue. Yes, Warhawk for the PlayStation is fantastic and certainly was mind-blowing when it was new in late 95, early 96. And that's it. Those are all the things. I really don't want to talk about the M2 because that just gets confusing. There is an ad here for Wipeout for the PlayStation, a game that I really wanted to like more than I did. It's kind of like Mario Kart with hovercrafts, or I guess like F-Zero, but in battle mode. And the handling just never really hit home for me. I think Wipeout XL was better, and Wipeout 3 was a little bit better than that. And then when we saw Wipeout come back for the PlayStation 4, I was impressed with that. But it's no F-Zero, not to me. It comes close. It's definitely stylish, has a futuristic feel, but it just doesn't do it for me there. ASCIIware's pads and PlayStation Stick. I always stuck with first party. I never did third party controllers for my PlayStation. I just didn't do it. An ad here for King's Field from ASCIIware. Oh yeah, these are the From Software people you're probably familiar with if you've played Demon's Souls or Dark Souls or any of those. This game is from them, so yes, they've been around that long. More on King's Field. The trick of the month is for Batman Forever. Oh, Doctor. Batman Forever for 16-bit consoles, just no. Don't bother. Don't waste your time. Like, even for a trick like that, it's not worth the time. Also an ad here for Corpse Killer, if that is your thing. Also have tricks here for Cyber Sled for the PlayStation, Lunar Eternal Blue for the Sega CD. We have The Real Ending, and we have Virtual Fighter 32X from Sega. We have the ability to play as Doral in that game. This is how we got our cheats, friends. We didn't have a computer yet, so if we wanted to find out codes and cheats for our favorite games, we would be buying these magazines and getting the information that we have. Busted System? Hey, check it out. It's the DK twins there. Call that phone number and get back in the game. You can get your system repaired. Unfortunately, you can't do that anymore. Thor and Kali mode for Warhawk. Eternal Champions on Sega CD, which is really good, by the way, if you can understand the controls. And oh, by the way, we have an ad here for Destruction Derby for the PlayStation. I loved Destruction Derby because you could just screw up the cars so much. And getting involved in a demolition derby in that game was just a hoot. It was a lot of fun. I think the racing kind of struggled a little bit, and I think that Reflections did better when it came to Destruction Derby 2. But this ad, I remember this ad, and I bought Destruction Derby at launch. There was no way that I wasn't going to play that game right away. Also have cheats here for Gex, Comic Zone, and Weapon Lord. And oh, 11 CDs for the price of one. Oh, man. Everyone who grew up in the 90s, or most everyone who grew up in the 90s, wound up doing this at some point. I wound up getting this, actually back in 1986 I did it. I bought, gosh, like the Outfield and the Hooters and Genesis and Boston and some other things. And I got out from under that real quick, though, because I didn't want that hanging over my head. You can subscribe to EGM and EGM2. We will be doing an issue of EGM2 on Print from the Past in the not-too-distant future. It's going to be a long episode. I hope you strap yourselves in. More codes for Off-World Interceptor Extreme and Mazer. So we have plenty of codes here. And I'm going to be kind of singling out some stuff here just because we're running short on time. Novastorm, Discworld, Wipeout, Lemming, 3D Lemmings, Destruction Derby. So all games that Psygnosis was responsible for. Of course, Reflections was responsible for Destruction Derby, but Psygnosis wound up releasing it and publishing it for them. Is that a motorized fork? Yeah. Feed the machine, because after all, you are what you eat. I don't know, man. It was the 90s. So Howard Lincoln speaks on the Ultra 64. We have a review, an interview here with Howard Lincoln. Back when Howard Lincoln and Minoru Arakawa and the original head of Nintendo were around, they did not pull punches. They ruled with iron fists, and I could respect that. Was it great? Not necessarily all the time, but I could certainly respect it. So there's a full interview here with Howard Lincoln. The games will be about $100 in Japan. How much in the US? According to Howard Lincoln, the price range will be between $60 to $70, similar to what 16-bit games are now. Some games are notably absent, like Cruisin' USA. Why? Mario Kart was further along in development, so we showed that. That's interesting because Cruisin' USA wound up coming out before Mario Kart, if I remember correctly. So that's an interesting interview. We have pictures of the controllers, all the different colors. Man, I love the different colors. I was an Atomic Purple guy. I have an Atomic Purple N64 controller now, and I absolutely adore it. So some photos from Super Mario 64, from Kirby Ball 64. So we have these images here. Super Mario 64, of course, being the big game for the N64, and still is to this day. One of the reasons that Super Mario 3D All-Stars sells so well is because being able to play Super Mario 64 on your Switch is a pretty big deal. Also have Pilot Wing 64, Star Fox 64, GoldenEye 007, and Legend of Zelda 64 looking really, really early. Those are some of the photos there. Pilot Wings and Mario are the two games I got at launch. I've talked about that before. I actually played more Pilot Wings than I did Mario, but Dire Dire Docks, which is level music from Super Mario 64, is one of my favorite music tracks of all time. GoldenEye 007, of course, a very important game in terms of 4-player first-person action. Blast Dozer, which would become Blast Core. Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, Wave Race 64, which looks a lot different there, and Body Harvest, which would be developed by the same team that would bring us Grand Theft Auto. So we have that stuff there. Buggy Boogie. I don't know if that came to the US. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments. Creator, Super Mario Kart R, which would be Mario Kart 64. Which people really, really enjoyed. I am not the greatest Mario Kart player, but of course I've played Mario Kart 64. Who hasn't? An ad here for FIFA Soccer 96. Some people have asked me, is the Retro Referee where all of my soccer coverage is? And if I'm being honest, I don't know enough about the sport, so I don't get a lot of soccer games. I have had my eye on a Fox Sports Soccer sealed, but pricing on that has gone up recently, which is why I don't have it just yet. But this is an ad for FIFA Soccer 96. Cheating comes to the 32-bit systems as Daytel and Interact are working on getting the Game Shark available. I never had a Game Shark for my PlayStation. I never really used any of that cheat stuff, and I didn't for the NES and the SNES either. I was not a Game Genie guy. I knew that it existed. I thought it was pretty cool, and it was great that they printed codes. That just was never my thing. Capcom's new Street Fighter. So EGM interviews the new president, Greg Ballard, who was the chief operating officer of Digital Pictures and was at the Warner Music Group beforehand. Capcom, man, they've had such a good run. They did have a down period for a little while, but I've been a Street Fighter fan for a long period of time, and not to mention their arcade games in the 80s I really enjoyed as well. Wall-to-wall excitement from Time Warner Interactive with Primal Rage Virtua Racing, Wayne Gretzky and the NHLPA All-Stars, Last Gladiators, and Kawasaki Superbike. So we have more ads here. Against the Wall, it's a brick wall. And what else we got? And now we're looking more at the games individually. Of course, we have all of these cards, which I'll just kind of sit off to the side. So the Genesis version of Revolution X, which definitely looks like it's a bit washed out in the photos here. Super Nintendo version is good. I think the PlayStation version is better if you're interested in playing the game. Spider-Man: The Web of Fire for the 32X. Was that a thing? I'd have to look. I don't remember whether it was a thing here, but it's certainly a thing in this magazine. So these are the photos and images of the game. So that's pretty cool. Virtual Cop for the Saturn. So this is where we're looking at more previews of the games after reviews in the front of the magazine. Creature Shock for the Saturn. Mortal Kombat 2 for the Saturn. Better late than never, it says. Also have the ad for Revolution X, by the way. And I will stop talking about Revolution X. I know I've mentioned it like 4 times in this video, which is already very, very long. An ad here for Solar Eclipse with the always fascinating photo of a guy's face getting blown off by air. I said I wasn't going to mention it, so I'm not going to say it, but it's that title that I talked about a bunch. XCOM, DEFCON 5, which I have and I haven't played yet. Thunderstrike 2, which I have and I haven't played yet. Warriors of Fate for the PlayStation. Oh, that looks... It's a beat 'em up. Have you heard of this? I'm talking to you like you're here in the same room with me. I don't recall this. I'd have to take a look at it. Added for Rayman. Identical to the arcade. So it is an arcade game. It must have been in Japan because I don't recognize it here in the U.S. An ad for Tekken. Save hundreds of dollars on fighting games. Just buy the best one or buy the right one. Yeah. Tekken on the PlayStation just runs so well. I actually picked up a long box version of Tekken when I went to Florida last year. And I got that in Jumping Flash, and I was very excited to get those. So more on Shockwave 2 for the 3DO. Again, very big on multimedia and full motion video. Bust-A-Move for the 3DO. Bust-A-Move, the characters from Bubble Bobble doing a puzzle game like a Match 3. Game's still popular today. Same Rush, Better Pay. So apparently Konami wanted you to come work for them back when they were still using their original Konami logo. Of course, these days you'd probably be working on making a slot machine instead of a video game, but that's neither here nor there. Attack of the Mutant Penguins for the Jaguar. because why not, right? Save on PlayStation news. There was a magazine called The PlayStation Experience, PSX. I actually had that issue, the one that's there in the photo. I actually did have that. I don't remember much about it, but I do remember having it. I was big on everything PlayStation. I had a PlayStation buyer's guide. I had any magazine that had like PlayStation on it. I was such a huge fan at the time. What else do we have here? We're getting close. We are getting close. Missile Command 3D for the Jaguar. Yeah, because that looks stellar. I don't know what Atari was thinking with the Jaguar. Just because it was 64 bits and we were supposed to think that more power meant better games, it never wound up being that way. And that's really too bad. What else do we have here? Trying to get the highlights. Killer Instinct for the Game Boy. We also have ads for Interact's Memory Card and Memory Card Plus. I've never liked third-party memory cards. When I used to work for when I used to work for FuncoLand, we actually had a couple of memory cards that did damage to memory card ports, like these third-party memory cards. So I always got first-party ones. I don't know whether it was because of the memory cards or not, but I didn't care to find out. Geom Cube for the PlayStation. You know, I have the long box copy, but as with most of my collection, I just had not had a chance to get around to playing it, so I don't know a lot about it. All I know is that Technos published it, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Wing Commander 3, The Heart of the Tiger for the PlayStation. Oh my gosh, Wing Commander. I could go on and on about how much I love Wing Commander. And no, it's not because of the gameplay per se, although a outer space shooter is very cool, and Colony Wars does this very well too. But it's the story, it's the actors, it's the way that it feels like an interactive movie, and Wing Commander 3 and 4, mwah, I absolutely love those games. I will not lie, I do play them on Invincible just to see the cinema sequences and to just play through the battles easily, but I don't regret that at all, because being able to watch the cinema sequences and see how battles turn out, because you can still lose even if you're invincible if you're not achieving certain objectives. Beavis and Butthead and Virtual Stupidity. You know, I actually played this on the PC when I first met my my ex-wife. She had a computer, and we wound up buying this game for that computer, and we laughed at it. Beavis and Butthead in a game like that, I think we thoroughly enjoyed. That was also the same time that I started to get into You Don't Know Jack as well. Fox Hunt for the PC, another full motion video game, and my experience with Fox Hunt comes from a Let's Play of Fox Hunt from Game Informer, which I absolutely adored. I think we also have an ad here for Rebel Assault 2. Rebel Assault 2 is so much better than the first game, and I really enjoy that as well. In fact, I think I opened that up for my Unsealed show. There's the ad, by the way, for Virtual Stupidity. Some of these ads I really need to take out and put on my wall. That would be awesome. Gex for $30, as long as you trade in 5 games. No. It's alright. I'll pay the $60, thanks. Beyond the Beyond for the PlayStation. This is back when it was still an import. I have that, and I started to play it a little bit, and I need to go back to it. Of course, that comes from Camelot. They worked on this before they worked on Hot Shots Golf for the PlayStation, and eventually they would flee Sony and go to Nintendo. Boy, this is going to be a record-setting episode here. What else do we have? We got an ad for In the Hunt, which is very small. Let's see if there's anything else in this issue that's worth showing. Ah, yes. Street Fighter Alpha. Oh my gosh. The original Street Fighter Alpha. I used to play it all the time in a bowling alley that also had NBA Jam and Teed Off, the pinball machine. And I played the heck out of Street Fighter Alpha, so you know that when it came for the PlayStation, I was getting that as soon as I possibly could. Johnny Bazooka-Tone for the 3DO is listed here. Tempest 2000. "3D Baseball, it's going to bruise more than egos." Just an angry baseball player because reasons. I don't understand the advertising there. Team EGM, will the PlayStation be the new system for sports? And for a little while at least, yeah, it was. We also have an ad for Tecmo Super Bowl 3 as well. I love looking back at these sports comments and reviews, and this particular time in history when we're moving on from the Super Nintendo and especially the Genesis, which was the king of sports games, to the 32-bit era, where the PlayStation just blew the Nintendo 64 away in terms of overall sports games. The 64 tried to keep up, much like the Super Nintendo tried to keep up with the Genesis, but the PlayStation really did walk away victorious in that sports battle. And Face Off and Game Day had a lot to do with that. Let's see what else we have here. The Saturn sure tried with Sega Sports, and you can even say sports. The Saturn did try. Unfortunately, it didn't compete well with the PlayStation in just about anything. A preview of NHL Face-Off, which did not come out in '95. It came out in early '96, and played pretty well, if we're being completely honest. It's a little rudimentary, and there are some things that, like in terms of the play controls, that aren't intuitive, but at the same time, for the time period, I think that it was pretty impressive. Also got an ad here for WrestleMania, the arcade game. I am just all over the Midway stuff tonight, between the shirt and between all of these ads. This is great. Revolution X. I said I wasn't going to say it, but I did. NBA in the virtual zone, so we're talking about NBA in the Zone 2, I believe, at this point. In the Zone 2, by the way, has Michael Jordan as a hidden character, called someone differently, but has all of Jordan's stats in the game. We have reviews here for NFL Game Day, which got a pair of 9s. There are only 2 reviewers for this sports section. Sega Rally Championship for the Saturn got a pair of 8.5s. World Series Baseball for the Saturn got an 8.5 and a 9. Emmett Smith Football for the Super Nintendo got a 5.5 and a 6. I don't even want to think about that game. So many football games for the Super Nintendo. I played almost all of them for the Super Nintendo guidebook, and Emmett Smith is not a game that I enjoyed. What else do we have here? Yeah, the letters to the letters from the editor. I may read those in another episode, as we're already pushing 45 minutes. Just talking about the next generation system wars, and again, this is before message boards were a thing, so this was the only way that people could go to bat for their favorite systems, and they did that during the 16-bit era too. They were just a little bit kinder than they are today. There certainly weren't the death threats back then that there are now, but people still talk junk. That's just kind of the way that we did things. EGM's top 10s. So for the editors, 10 was Virtual Cop, 9 was Mortal Kombat 3 for the Super, 8 Toy Story, 7 Donkey Kong Country 2, number 6 Sega Rally, number 5 Pitfall for the 32X. Really? Okay. Number 4 Captain Quasar for the 3DO. Now I don't even know what's going on. 3 Twisted Metal for the PlayStation, 2 Warhawk for the PlayStation, and number 1 Street Fighter Alpha for the PlayStation. For readers, number 10 Chrono Trigger, number 9 Killing Time for the 3DO, number 8 Astal for the Saturn, number 7 SimCity 2000 for the Saturn, number 6 Yoshi's Island for the Super Nintendo, number 5 Pitfall from Activision for the 32X. Really? I have to ask that question again. Number 4 Mortal Kombat 3 for the Genesis, number 4, that was number 4, number 3 Mortal Kombat 3 for the Super, number 2 Twisted Metal, and number 1 Warhawk. Love looking through those. More letters and some ads, and then Game Shark, and then an ad here for Fox Hunt. So that's a look back, a 45-minute look back at issue 78 of Electronic Gaming Monthly from January 1996. Of course, that would lead us to get ready for the Nintendo 64. Sony was not about to take that lying down, as the PlayStation would put up a very, very good fight, and in fact emerge victorious in its battle against Nintendo for superiority in the 5th generation of video game consoles. As always, I thank you very much for checking out my work here on YouTube. I hope you enjoy this series, Print from the Past. We'll do another one really soon. Until the next time, my friends, take care of yourselves and each other. See you later.